Little Johnny comes home from school one day and asks his mother what meant. Thinking fast, she replied, "Food on the table." Next day he comes home and asks his mother, "What does son of a bitch mean?" Again, thinking fast again, she says, "It's a priest." Next day he comes home and asks what mean. She says it means getting dressed. That same night, a priest was coming over for dinner. Johnny has just finished setting the table when he hears the doorbell ring. He yells, "Got it!" He opens the door and says, "Hey, son, I've it on the table, and mom and dad are upstairs." Little Johnny comes home from Sunday school with a black eye. His father sees it and says, "Johnny, how many times do I have to tell you not to fight with the other boys?" "But Dad, it wasn't my fault," Johnny replies. "We were all in church saying our prayers. We all stood up, and my teacher in front of me had her dress in the crack of her I reached over and pulled it out. That's when she hit me." "Johnny," the father said, "you don't do those kinds of things to women." Sure enough, the very next Sunday, Johnny came home with the other eye, black and blue. Johnny's father said, "Johnny, I thought we had a talk." "But Dad," Johnny said, "it wasn't my fault. There we were, in church saying our prayers. We all stood up, and my teacher in front of us had her dress in the crack of her Then Louis, who was sitting next to me, saw it, and he reached over and pulled it out. Now I know she doesn't like this, so I pushed it back in." While standing in line at the bank, a mom struggled to keep her restless toddler under control. After several judgmental stares from strangers, she leaned down and warned, "Behave, or there will be consequences." Her daughter, without skipping a beat, shouted loud enough for the whole bank to hear, "If you don't let me go, I'll tell Grandma I saw you kissing Daddy's pee last night." Dead silence. Even the bank tellers froze. With what little dignity she had left, the mom grabbed her child and marched out, while laughter exploded behind her. Once, a mother-in-law explaining the working of her house to her newly married daughter-in-law. She said, "I am the home minister as well as the finance minister of this house. Your father-in-law is the foreign minister of this house. My son, that is your husband, heads the Ministry of Demand and Supply, and my daughter, that is your husband's sister, runs the Planning and Development Ministry. Now, you tell which ministry would you like to run?" The daughter-in-law, with a smile, instantly replied, "Well, dear mother-in-law, I will be running the opposition." The night before his 18th birthday, a teenager invited his girlfriend over since his parents were out. After some bonding time, they heard the house phone ring downstairs. In a hurry and still in their birthday suits, he gave her a piggyback ride down to the phone. Just as they reached the bottom of the stairs, surprise! The lights flipped on and there stood his entire family. Parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, and friends, all ready for a surprise party. The couple froze like deer in headlights. Needless to say, surprise parties were permanently cancelled after that. A social worker went to check on a young couple living out in the country. They had 9 kids, and the mom wasn't even 30 yet. The worker, a bit surprised, gently asked the mom, "Have you ever thought about birth control?" The mom blinked, confused. "Birth? What now?" So the social worker pulled out a box of condoms from her bag and tried to explain. The mom squinted at the box like it was written in ancient Greek, then shouted, "Honey, come look at this." The dad shuffled in, shirtless, looked at, scratched his head and said, "Are these snacks or something?" Now the worker, clearly panicking a little, spotted a broom leaning against the wall. She grabbed it, slipped it over the handle and said, "Look, before you have you put this on." The man nodded really seriously. "Ah, got it." Feeling proud, the social worker left a few extra boxes and drove off, thinking she'd made a difference. 2 months later, she came back. The mom answered the door. The worker nearly fainted. "You're pregnant. I thought you were using it." The dad called out from the kitchen. "Oh, yeah, every time. I did just like you said. Right before we got freaky, I jumped up, grabbed that condom, and slid it right on the broomstick. Don't know why it didn't work, though." The friendly usher at the country church greeted the elderly woman visitor at the door and helped her up the steps. "Where would you like to sit?" he asked politely. "The front row, please," she answered. "You really don't want to do that," the usher said. "The pastor is really boring." "Do you happen to know who I am?" the woman inquired. "No," he said. "I'm the pastor's mother," she replied indignantly. "Do you know who I am?" he asked. "No," she said. "Good," he answered. Jay was applying for a job. "Does the company pay for my hospitalization?" he asked. "No, you pay for it," the personnel director said. "We take it out of your salary each month." "The last place I worked, they paid for it," Jay said. "That's unusual," the personnel man said. "How much vacation did you get?" 6 weeks, Jay replied. "Did you get a bonus?" the personnel man asked. "Yes," Jay said. "Not only that, they gave us an annual bonus, sent us a turkey on Thanksgiving, gave us the use of a company car, and threw a big barbecue for us each year." "Why did you leave?" asked the personnel director. "They went busted," said Jay. An Angelist appears at a faculty meeting and tells the dean that in return for his unselfish and exemplary behavior, the Lord will reward him with his choice of infinite wealth, wisdom, or beauty. Without hesitating, the dean selects infinite wisdom. "Done," says the angel, and disappears in a cloud of smoke and a bolt of lightning. Now, all heads turn toward the dean, who sits surrounded by a faint halo of light. One of his colleagues whispers, "Say something." The dean sighs and says, "I should have taken the money." A 98-year-old Mother Superior from Ireland was dying. The nuns gathered around her bed, trying to make her last journey comfortable. They tried giving her some warm milk to drink, but she refused it. One of the nuns took the glass back to the kitchen, and remembering a bottle of Irish whiskey received as a gift the previous Christmas, she opened it and poured a generous amount into the warm milk. Back at Mother Superior's bed, the nun held the glass to her lips. Mother drank a little, then a little more. Before they knew it, she had drunk the whole glass down to the last drop. "Mother," the nuns asked with earnest, "please give us some wisdom before you die." She raised herself up in bed and whispered, "Don't sell that cow." A man walked into a supermarket with his zipper down. A female checker walked up to him and said, "Your barracks door is open." Not a phrase that men normally use. He went on his way, looking a bit puzzled. When he was just about done shopping, a man came up and said, "Your fly is open." He zipped up and finished his shopping. At the checkout, he intentionally got in the line where the girl was that told him about his barracks door. He was planning to have a little fun with her, so when he reached the counter, he said, "When you saw my barracks door open, did you see a soldier standing in there at attention?" The girl thought for a moment and said, No, I didn't. But I saw a disabled veteran sitting on a couple of old duffel bags." An elderly woman went to the store to buy some cat food. She picked up 3 cans, but the cashier stopped her, saying, "I'm sorry, but we can't sell this to you unless you prove you own a cat. Some seniors have been buying cat food for themselves, so we need to make sure it's for your pet." Unfazed, the woman went home, brought her cat back to the store, and was able to purchase the food. The next day, she returned to buy 2 cans of dog food. Again, the cashier requested proof. So the woman went home, fetched her dog, and returned, successfully completing her purchase. On the 3rd day, the woman came back with a small box that had a hole in the lid. She handed it to the cashier and said, "Would you mind sticking your finger inside?" The cashier hesitated, saying, "What if there's a snake in there?" The woman reassured her, I promise there's nothing in there that could harm you." Reluctantly, the cashier put her finger in the hole, then quickly pulled it out, exclaiming, "That's disgusting." With a grin, the elderly woman replied, "Glad you agree. Now, can I buy 2 rolls of toilet paper, please?" A man walked into the produce section of his local supermarket and asked to buy half a head of cabbage. The boy working in that department told him that they only sold whole heads of cabbage. The man was insistent that the boy ask the manager about the matter. Walking into the back room, the boy said to the manager, "Some old fart outside wants to buy half a head of cabbage." As he finished his sentence, he turned around to find that one of the man had followed and was standing right behind him, so the boy quickly added, "And this gentleman kindly offered to buy the other half." The manager approved the deal, and the man went on his way. Later, the manager said to the boy, "I was impressed with the way you got yourself out of that situation earlier. We like people who can think on their feet here." "Where are you from, son?" "Russia, sir." The boy replied, "Dishtit. Why did you leave Russia?" the manager asked. The boy said, "Sir, there's nothing but prostitutes and ice hockey players in Russia." "Is that right?" fumed the manager. "My wife is from Russia." "Really?" replied the boy. "What team did she play for?" A company was trying to hire someone for an important position, so they interviewed dozens of applicants and narrowed their search down to 3 people. In an attempt to pick one of them, they decided to give them all the same question to answer within 24 hours, and the one with the best answer would get the job. The question was, a man and a woman are in bed, nude. The woman is lying on her side with her back facing the man, and the man is lying on his side facing the woman's back. What is the man's name? After the 24 hours was up, the 3 were brought in to give their answers. The first one, who is a young man, says, "My answer is there is no answer." The second one says, "My answer is that there is no way to determine the answer with the information we were given." The third one, who is an elderly man, says, "I'm not exactly sure, but I have it narrowed down to 2 names. It's either Willie Turner or Willie Naylor." A big-shot attorney ended up in the hospital for a few days, and he quickly became a nightmare for the staff. He treated the nurses like they were his personal assistants, barking orders and complaining about everything. None of the hospital staff could stand him, but the head nurse? She was the only one who wasn't afraid to put him in his place. One day, she walked into his room with a mission. "I need to take your temperature," she announced. He immediately started grumbling and whining for a solid 5 minutes, but eventually he crossed his arms, opened his mouth, and gave in. "No, sorry," the nurse said. "I can't use an oral thermometer for this reading." More complaints followed, but after a while, he rolled over and exposed his backside with a dramatic sigh. Once the thermometer was inserted, the nurse smirked. "I need to get something. You stay just like that until I get back." She left, making sure the door was wide open behind her. The man fumed in embarrassment as people passed by, laughing. 20 minutes later, the doctor came in, looking around with confusion. "What's going on here?" he asked. The attorney, red-faced and frustrated, snapped, "What's the matter, Doc? Never seen someone get their temperature taken." The doctor paused, then, with a straight face, said, "Not with a daffodil." The man froze. What?" The doctor just shrugged and walked out. The nurse had really outdone herself this time. A woman in a supermarket is following a grandfather and his badly behaved grandson. He has his hands full, with the child screaming for sweets, biscuits, all sorts of things. The granddad is saying in a controlled voice, "Easy, William, we won't be long. Easy, boy." Another outburst, and she hears the granddad calmly say, "It's okay, William. Just a couple more minutes and we'll be out of here. Hang in there, boy." At the checkout, the little horror is throwing items out of the trolley. Granddad says again in a controlled voice, William, relax, buddy. Don't get upset. We'll be home in 5 minutes. Stay cool, William." Very impressed, she goes outside to where the grandfather is loading his groceries and the boy into the car. She says, "It's none of my business, but you were amazing in there. I don't know how you did it. That whole time you kept your composure, and no matter how loud and disruptive he got, you just calmly kept saying things would be okay. William is very lucky to have you as his granddad." "Thanks," says the grandpa, "but I am William. The little bastard's name is Kevin." Daryl and Harold were the best patients in a mental institution. The place had an unusual annual contest, picking 2 of the best patients and giving them 2 questions. If they got them correct, they were deemed cured and free to go. Daryl was called into the doctor's office first and asked if he understood that he'd be free if he answered the questions correctly. Daryl said, "Yes," and the doctor proceeded. "Daryl, what would happen if I poked out one of your eyes?" Daryl said, "I'd be half blind." "That's correct. What if I poked out both eyes?" "I'd be completely blind." The doctor stood up, shook Daryl's hand, and told him he was free to go. On Daryl's way out, as the doctor filled out the paperwork, Daryl mentioned the exam to Harold, who was seated in the waiting room. He told him what questions were going to be asked and gave him the answers. So Harold went into the doctor's office when he was called. The doctor went through the formalities and then asked, "What would happen if I cut off one of your ears?" Remembering what Daryl had told him, he answered, "I'd be half blind." The doctor looked a little puzzled, but went on, "What if I cut off the other ear?" "I'd be completely blind," Harold answered. "Harold, can you explain how you'd be blind?" "My hat would fall down over my eyes." 2 men are in a lunatic asylum, and one night they decide they don't like living in an asylum anymore. They decide they're going to escape. They get up onto the roof, and there, just across this narrow gap, they see the rooftops of the town, stretching away in the moonlight, to freedom. The first man jumps right across with no problem, but his friend didn't dare make the leap, afraid of falling. So then, the first man has an idea. He says, "Hey, I have my flashlight with me. I'll shine it across the gap between the buildings. You can walk along the beam and join me." The second man immediately spots the problem with this and shakes his head. "What do you think I am? Crazy? You'd turn it off when I was halfway across." Doctor, why is your hand swollen? Old Grom, I took off her panties first, but not all the way down. I leave them by her ankles. Doctor, go on. Old Grom, I'll take off her bra next. And... Doctor, and... Patient, run out with it, cut the broad elastic off the bra straps, make a slingshot, and hunt myself some swallows. The authorities were leading a priest, a drunkard, and an engineer to the guillotine. They asked the priest if he wanted to face up or down when he meets his fate. The priest said that he would like to face up so that he will be looking toward heaven when he dies. So, they raise the blade of the guillotine, release it, and it comes speeding down and suddenly stops just inches from his neck. The authorities take this as divine intervention and release the priest. Next, the drunkard comes to the guillotine. He also decides to die face up, hoping that he will be as fortunate as the priest. They raise the blade of the guillotine, release it, and it comes speeding down and suddenly stops just inches from his neck. So, the authorities release the drunkard as well. Next is the engineer. He also decides to die facing up. They slowly raise the blade of the guillotine when suddenly the engineer shouts, "Wait! I think the problem is right there where the cable is binding." Science requires telling the truth despite everything. A champion jockey was preparing for a crucial race on a new horse when the trainer pulled him aside. "Listen carefully," the trainer said. "This horse is a little different. Every time you approach a jump, you must yell "Ollie oop" as loud as you can. If you do that, everything will go smoothly." The jockey raised an eyebrow. "You're joking, right?" "Nope, just do it." the trainer insisted. Skeptical but eager to win, the jockey mounted up and the race began. As they neared the first hurdle, he decided the trainer's advice was nonsense and stayed silent. The horse barreled straight through the jump, sending wood flying everywhere. Shaken but determined, they reached the second hurdle. This time, feeling a little foolish, the jockey hesitantly whispered, "Allez, Crash! The horse smashed through the jump again. Now in full panic mode, the jockey realized he had no choice. As they approached the third jump, he took a deep breath and shouted at the top of his lungs, "Allez, oop!" Like magic, the horse soared gracefully over the hurdle. For the rest of the race, the jockey followed the trainer's bizarre instructions, clearing every jump with ease. Unfortunately, the disastrous start meant they only finished in third place. After the race, the furious trainer stormed over. "What happened? Why didn't you do what I told you?" The jockey threw up his hands. "I did. But what's the deal with this horse? Is he deaf or something?" The trainer's eyes nearly popped out of his head. "Deaf? You absolute idiot! He's blind!" Last night, I tried to sneak into the kitchen like a ninja. The mission: ice cream, the challenge, get there without waking anyone. Easy, right? Wrong. Step 1. I got out of bed like a silent shadow and immediately stepped on a Lego. My whisper scream was so intense I think I summoned spirits. Step 2. Made it to the hallway, forgot how loud the floorboards are at night. Every step sounded like I was playing the drums with my feet. I froze like a statue every 3 seconds, just in case someone heard. Step 3. Finally reached the kitchen, opened the freezer like a safecracker. The light inside turned on like a spotlight from heaven. I was basically on stage. Cue dramatic background music. Step 4. Grabbed the ice cream tub and dropped the spoon. Clang! That spoon hit the floor like a cymbal in a marching band. At that exact moment, my cat decided to jump out of nowhere like a flying ninja, and I swear I saw my soul leave my body. Step 5. Gave up. Ate 2 bites straight from the tub, while crouched like Gollum behind the kitchen counter. Heard someone coming, panicked, ran back to bed with the speed of a raccoon in a trash can raid. Next morning, did you hear weird noises last night? Me. Nope. Must have been the wind. The wind.